Good morning. Hi, Chapter 1.
No.
I'm Aaron.
Oh my.
This is Jeffrey Weiss with the Aaron and Geoff team. I'm here with my partner, Aaron Geoff, and we are here to talk to you. Hey, what's going on, Wes? How are you?
But I'm so excited to have you on the pod, Wes Collins from Charlotte, North Carolina. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us.
Forgot a step. You're Aaron.
So I didn't want to.
You didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that. Yeah. So now you've hit the recording.
Cool.
So good job.
Cool.
Great.
So selfless, humble.
They know who we are.
Oh,
You know.
okay.
No. Okay. Whatever.
Next time, tell me so I'm not like standing here waiting. And I'm Jeff.
See, we're still doing this. Okay.
Are we keeping this?
Yeah, we're keeping this. Of course.
Cool.
Yeah. I was gonna be a part of it.
I like it.
Great.
Welcome to the Relocation Rundown, Wes. Thanks so much for joining this show.
So we're gonna restart because you just. So we are so excited to have the fabulous Wes Collins from Charlotte, North Carolina. Wes, it's so great to have you. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us if you're not originally from Charlotte, like where you're from, and how long you've been in the business and all that.
Yeah, sure. Typical rundown. So I've been in Charlotte, since third grade. I was actually born in Dallas, Texas, moved to Japan for 3 years for my dad's job. And then at which point my parents randomly picked a spot on the map, and that happened to be Charlotte. And I have been here ever since. So I stayed in North Carolina, went to college, Appalachian State, Western North Carolina, and studied history, secondary education. Outside of that, went down back to Charlotte, South Charlotte. I taught high school history for, I don't even think I made it a full 3 years, and it was not the route for me long term. And so I pivoted into real estate, into something that I felt like I could still teach and kind of make a lateral transition there, while still kind of using a bit of the skill set I'd refined. But yeah, I've been doing this now for 10 years. This would be my 10th year, which is awesome. And crazy to say I've been doing it for a decade, but yeah, I am a co-owner, co-principal of Clockwork Realty Group here in Charlotte with Compass. And we are now a team of 10. So there's 3 of us as principals, and yeah, just, grateful to have Compass and a platform like this to, talk to you guys and meet new people around the country. It's been awesome.
How long have you been with Compass now?
About 2.5 years. So I think closer to 3. I think March is my Compass anniversary.
And how was that transition for you? What are you finding has changed for you with the Compass shift?
Yeah, great question. So I originally started at Trump International Realty.
Did you?
Believe it or not?
That's
yes.
so funny. You were the second person that I know that started their career at Trump Realty.
Really?
Yeah.
I would love to know who's the other person.
Her name is Ginger Shakroon, and she's from New Jersey.
And she's amazing.
Okay.
And she sold
Okay.
on site in one of his buildings in Manhattan.
That's a nice gig. Yeah, I didn't necessarily have that luxury. They did have a little office around the golf club. He loves to say like Trump National Charlotte, but really it's in Mooresville, like a suburb, 30 miles away. Anyways, pivoted when he originally ran for office because real estate's hard enough. And then you add that sort of hurdle. People were ripping up my cards. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, we're keeping this. Of course.
Cool.
Yeah, I was going to be a part of it.
I like it.
Great.
Welcome to the Relocation Rundown, Wes. Thanks so much for joining this shit show.
So we're going to restart because you just...
And I was with a smaller, like family-run boutique for a number of years. Compass was not yet in our market, and no one's perfect. I ended up at EXP briefly, and then I rebound. I guess that was my rebound. But then I am happily ever after, hopefully, here at Compass. And so, yeah, I mean, I think from a tools perspective, right, obviously everyone touts the platform and the CRM in terms of our day-to-day. simplifying our lives with CMA tools. And I think just probably what everyone talks about, right? Having this mindset of the client being us as the agents is super unique. No one else really kind of has that mentality with their clients and with their agents. Typically they're a cash cow, which we still are, but I also think it's a service model towards us as agents. So, independent brokerage, right? Being able to connect with everybody nationally. Obviously, that's how we got connected, was through the webs of YP, and it's been awesome. It's been a really good journey here so far.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, I like to ask because I've been at Compass since 2018 now. So I feel like I'm just so in the ecosystem that I sometimes wonder, what's bringing people in today versus what was back then.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's very different then.
It's a very different company than it was back then. But let's talk a little more about Charlotte.
Yeah, we know nothing about Charlotte.
Yeah,
So
it's fun because most of these real estate rundowns, relocation rundowns that we've done, are talking about markets that we've been to, we know, we visited. I don't think I've ever been to Charlotte.
we've been to North Carolina.
Been to Raleigh.
We've driven down the coast. I just never, Charlotte's never been there.
Been to Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you love about Charlotte? Why do you live there? Why are people relocating there?
Yeah. I mean, Charlotte as a whole, right? I think we're close to usurping someone for like the 16th largest city in the US. So we're up there,
Wow.
right? In terms of size.
Right. Yeah.
Which I won't say that. But sometimes size does matter. Okay. And so in terms of the city itself, it is great. I would say, a lot of the big draws, of course, people that we really get a lot of relocations from come from the Northeast. So, New York, of course, is really that largest banking financial hub. Charlotte's number 2 on the East Coast. And that's really a big draw. There's a lot of transitions within Bank of America and Wells Fargo there. But I think backing up before we get into specifics, Charlotte as a whole, you get 4 seasons, right? That's a novel idea. And a lot of these areas in the Northeast don't have that. You have, we like to tout 2 hours, hour and a half to the mountains, 3 hours to the sea. Really moderate climate. And it's a beautiful place. I mean, looks a little sad right now with our dead deciduous trees, as I see out here. But typically when they're budding in spring and everyone's suffering from the pollen, and then in the fall, you have people flock to the mountains to see the leaves changing. I mean, it really is just a beautiful, beautiful place. And so, growing up here, I actually didn't know if I was going to end up back in Charlotte. And I think realizing, and probably similar to other major cities, there are so many different places you can live, that you can really live in so many different ways. And I think, I grew up in one of the suburbs of Charlotte called Matthews, in the southeast part of Charlotte. And then in generally what we kind of dub South Charlotte, growing up through middle school and high school. And those areas I do business in still, but I live north of there now. And I was in some of the city neighborhoods outside of, just outside of the city after college. And ever since then, I just kind of fell in love with some of these different neighborhoods.
What is like the thing that brings people to the area for tourism, as opposed to just like the seasonality? Is there a big kind of draw in the area?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as tourism, we have a lot. A lot of big draws being NASCAR related. People could tout, right? You've got Concord, which is, you've got the Speedway up there. You've got rich history. Actually, a lot of Lake Norman. We have 2 major lakes in the Charlotte area. Lake Norman being on the north side, and then Lake Wylie being on the southeast. And then, I think other major draws, we've kind of turned into a nice foodie city. We had Johnson and Wales is oh gosh, what am I thinking? Basically, it's It's a cooking college. It's a culinary institute.
Oh,
There we go.
yeah, we have Johnson and Wales. Well, we don't have it here, but there's another Johnson and Wales in Providence, Rhode Island, that a lot of my
Okay.
friends do, and
Yeah,
it's a
and
good, culinary hospitality school. Yeah.
100%. And it popped up, I want to say in the early 2000s. And then, strangely enough, uptown Charlotte or downtown Charlotte isn't really, in my mind, what people come to see. I mean, it's a beautiful skyline. If you want to go see some of our losing sports teams currently, you can go see the Panthers or the Hornets or who FC. They're successful. They were in the playoffs and they got a playoff dub. But I really think those are some of the main drivers of what's out there. And then I also think we're a major hub in terms of an airport. That's a big driver for a lot of people. Again, that with that relocation in mind, education, taxes. I think from a tourism standpoint, though, there's just a charm about what Charlotte has to offer that not a whole lot of large growing cities ever attained.
Do you have that like Southern hospitality sort of charm, or are you not quite Southern feeling in North Carolina?
I mean, you'll get the wave, right? Like people will get really shocked when you are driving, even in a neighborhood, like someone waves to you and you're like, what the hell's going on? I can't tell you how many people have been not even just deeply confused by what that wave means, by people walking down the street. No, not uptown, right? Like that's fast paced. People don't do that, but so don't do that. But I think if you're like in the neighborhoods driving around and letting someone pass, you go, it's all good. I would say, you definitely have the yes ma'ams and the yes sirs. And, I think there are different pockets where you probably have more of that Southern charm because maybe you have more natives of Charlotte, but it's definitely a mixed bag. I mean, we have 117 people moving to Charlotte every single day. And so you talk about just the sheer number of relocations. I mean, it is going to be kind of this melting pot. And that's really what it's become. But I think that's, again, adds kind of to the charm of it because we have people from everywhere. That really is demonstrated. I always laugh. Speaking of the Carolina Panthers, you go to any home game for the Carolina Panthers, and you will undoubtedly see more of the opponent's jerseys than the Carolina Panthers jerseys, just because it's a newer franchise in the grand scheme of things. Unfortunately, they've never really won much of anything outside of two, I would argue, maybe three solid seasons. And so you have these people that come from, of course, the Northeast. You've got Giants. I don't know why people are Jets fans, but then you also have, a lot of Redskins fans who were here long before the Panthers, Steelers. Everyone's a bandwagon Dallas fan. So anyways, I got off track. Sometimes the Panthers do that to me, but I would say that we have retained our Southern charm in a lot of ways.
Good.
Okay.
What should people know about Charlotte before they move there or decide to relocate there? Like, what's the nuances of the market?
Yeah. Great question. I mean, I think obviously we nationally have, everyone probably touts an inventory crisis, right? There's a pretty interesting chart, right? That if you look at population growth in Charlotte and you look at inventory, there's this widening gap, right? And so you basically are always going to have this ultimate need for inventory and for homes. And so we are a competitive, for the most part, seller's market. I would say this year, like into many other markets, we've seen a little bit of a slowdown. I mean, as far as inventory counts are concerned, lower inventory sales here than until the 90s, right? If you look all the way back. And so there's definitely some competitive dealings for sure. I would say since the election, I think there's just kind of this relief of the anxiety of the unknown. Yeah. And since that time, I would say people are getting ready, they're gearing up, they're ready to continue moving forward with their plans to buy, sell, whatever.
Yeah, we're hearing that
But
pretty frequently across markets right now, I think. I'm feeling it myself in our business. I'm hearing it from colleagues who we co-broke with. I'm hearing it from agents in other markets we're talking to. I don't know if it's a relief from the unknown or if it's
We know what we're expecting.
a resignation to this is reality. It's time to make plans either way.
Yeah, sure.
So it'll be an interesting market next year, but like you said, inventory is not appearing out of thin air, so it's going to continue to likely be competitive.
What's the inventory like though? Like what? Like, do you have a lot of townhouses, condos, single family homes, multifamily? Like, what are you dealing with?
Yeah. So we have, I would say primarily, we have single family homes in the Charlotte area. Over the last decade, there's certainly been a push for more multifamily, specifically townhomes. You'll occasionally see builders drop in a duet, right? A duplex, but a duet is our bougie term for it in our market. If you're over a certain price point, it can't be called a duplex. And
Interesting.
yeah, I
So
would
that's the New
say,
York City luxury market.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we don't have multifamily in a large capacity like triplexes, like quadplexes. A lot of those, at least in my experience, right, maybe farther out into the suburbs, but they're trying to figure that out in these higher density parts of Charlotte. But you've got a lot of really old deed restrictions. You've got neighbors and neighborhoods where if you try to drop down, a quadplex in a sea of these single family, homeowners, like all hell is going to raise. And so, yeah, it's definitely, a lot. I live in a 1960s ranch. A lot of neighborhoods sort of in South Charlotte seem to kind of emulate that and mirror that really in any direction. But you definitely have your fair share, again, and some of these more robust neighborhoods, tear downs, plenty of renovation projects, and then, of course, large scale developments. But again, those larger suburbia, right, there's going to be kind of around the outer loop. We have a large highway system, a freeway, 485, which really encompasses all of the greater Charlotte area. I would say around there is where these builders are doing like the major tract homes.
So especially as inventory has been tight, I'm sure that you've seen, crazy growth of appreciation on pricing in your market. What's it like now? What was it like before COVID just a few years ago, so that we have an understanding of the kind of trajectory your market's on? And then I want to ask if you think that it's sustainable moving forward.
No, I'll just start there. I don't think COVID appreciation is ever sustainable. It's already pretty wild. I think one of the craziest things that we can kind of do is if someone buys or has purchased a home in 2018, 2019, you can basically double that price. And assuming they didn't do a whole lot of updates, you're probably maybe dropping a couple tens of thousands of dollars, but you're probably in that correct ballpark. We've seen our average price point, I would say in Charlotte as a whole, it's going to be closer to the median price point, I should say, is probably closer to 480, probably creeping up to 500. And I think if you look at the actual average, I mean, that number ticks up into the high fives. So I think you definitely have, again, outliers in any direction, but I think from an affordability standpoint, it's definitely hard to find something that fits all the boxes within a price point in certain areas. So I think making sure people are realistic in their approach is definitely a big part of kind of our job, right, and our goal. But I'm probably transparent to a fault about that with people. But I also think that's what people need. And they need tough love to kind of understand what they're looking for.
Yeah, I agree and have a similar philosophy with our clients too. So, I mean, doubling price roughly since just 2018 for somebody who's been in this for 10 years. I mean, what was your average price point in 2016?
I was, it's funny, right? I think a lot of that too is really interesting because when you're in real estate, I'm a big ninja selling guy, right? So a lot of what I do is based on my sphere and who I know. And so here I was, a 25-year-old kid. I was a kid at 25 for sure. Yeah.
So
And yeah, I think so. And anyways, people were buying their first homes at $400,000. And so I think now, again, a decade later, you're starting to see those price points increase, and those are $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 now. And so, my average price point this year is probably around 650, 7. And so, it is difficult, I would even say as agents sometimes, for us to kind of digest that change and compute that change where, I'm used to driving through this one neighborhood that is, X. And now to think, I'll take the example. I was driving through Lake Norman community here recently, and I have people that are looking up to $1 million, and I can't find anything that they can afford that is like a nice house. And it's fascinating that previously, if you were a 750, you could get whatever you wanted, and so now it's a very different dynamic. I think if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. Can you tell us a success story that you've had with a relocation client of somebody who maybe didn't know much about Charlotte and you were able to show them and help them figure out where they should be?
Yeah, I would say about a quarter of our business is through relocation, right? And
wow,
I think
a lot.
I think a big part of that is, you look at home prices here versus the Northeast, right? We're probably about 20% less than where you guys are at. I think taxes is like a really big change for us. I know the tax bills up there are gnarly. And then, I also think people coming from the West Coast, which is the example that I'll use. But coming from the West Coast, typically for kind of apples to apples, we're probably about 40% less from some of those major markets there. So, I've got a couple here in this past year. I had some people that came in from San Diego. They were actually a Compass referral, and they ended up landing in the southern part of Charlotte, a suburb called Waxhaw, Weddington, and ultimately landing in this one area called Marvin. These guys really were kind of going off of a couple of things. They kind of had an idea from like a school standpoint where they wanted to be, but neighborhood wise, just generally had no idea. And again, in a market where we couldn't even find a house that really fit their needs. And so, was able to kind of tour them around. One of the things that we have is a relocation guide, kind of a welcome to Charlotte guide, pretty comprehensive, everything from tax rates to politics to not like anything in depth, but easy there.
Here's your governor's name.
Yeah, that's it.
Bingo. Yeah, stick to the facts, Wes.
There you go.
And then, I think just overall, what is sort of this vibe and feel of different neighborhoods and areas within Charlotte? I think that coupled with kind of a tour, the one time they did come in, really landed us on that Marvin area. Fortunately, there was actually a private exclusive that we ended up finding, scooped it up, actually beat out another Compass agent that was looking at the same property. And absolutely perfect, stunning house. But they're still there, love it, happy. I think a lot of people coming in from West Coast, two from San Diego this last year, people coming in from DC all the time. There's a really big population coming from there. And then of course, Northeast, and then randomly Ohio. We're like a more moderate Ohio. I guess, Ohio is just cold as shit and no one wants to be there all the time. And so we've
been getting a weird influx of people from Boise recently.
A lot of Boise.
And I don't know the last place I would have expected people coming from, but
we've had 3 deals with people who own property in Boise. So
that market is unbelievable. And you talk about sustainability. They appreciated so much so fast because all these people were moving in from California, just kind of sliding over, that I think they've seen a bit of a kind of a dip and decrease because they ended up moving so fast. So
yeah, we know a great Compass agent out there.
Yeah, she'll be on the show soon.
Yeah.
Let's go.
What advice do you have for people who are thinking about moving to Charlotte?
Do your homework. I think getting plugged in with someone who, I mean, I'm not a native, but I think there are advantages to people who have been here for a long time, or maybe even people who have gone through the journey themselves. One thing that we're working on this year, I'm super pumped about, is I think people traditionally have like a vendor list. We're trying to basically create a list of our tribe, right? Kind of our people that we can share to other people. But I think it's beyond like plumbers and electricians. I think it's doctors and daycares, and how do we basically get someone plugged into our tribe as soon as they moved in? I think that is definitely of value. Childcare is a very, very hot scene and hot topic here. You gotta let people know to reserve a spot before you even know you're pregnant if you're trying in that regard. So it is like cutthroat. One thing too that's pretty unique about the North Carolina market and our purchase process is we do have non-refundable deposits. And so we have basically two deposits in North Carolina. One is due diligence and one is earnest money. And this is a really wildly unique concept to people coming from these different areas. And so whenever we tell them, hey, once you give this, you're going to cut this check directly to the seller, and then you'll get credited back at closing. But if you walk away, like you walk away. And so
I remember that from somebody we knew in Raleigh.
Yep. Yeah. It is fascinating to see the facial expressions of people who are like, but wait, what if the inspection is just total garbage? Like,
sorry.
Oh shit. Sorry. I tried to tell you, this is why we do a consult. But I think consultation and a consultative approach is a big part of what we do, just because we don't like surprises. And I think, our phrase we like to use is clarity is kindness. And so I think making sure that we can be as clear and provide as much clarity as possible is a big part of that. But I also think, ultimately budget is going to dictate where you land. However, I would also argue that, you need to drive. You need to be here. You need to see it. And sight unseen. I think that world is crazy. I think it sometimes is required, but just take a day or two to kind of figure out, hey, like this is an area that I could envision myself. Because if the house is great, but you're in the middle of nowhere that you want to be, then you're not going to be there long term. And that's our goal, right? Is to get someone somewhere long term, so maybe they don't have to move again. That's at least mine.
And it sounds like having a person in your corner and somebody who knows how to deal with this market and be your expert is the way to go, just like we say in our market here. And it sounds like you have some great resources both in the works and already. Do you want to tell us kind of, again, who you are, where people can find you, follow you, et cetera?
Yeah. Wes Collins in Charlotte, Wes Collins, CLT on the old gram, not on purpose, but that works out nicely. And no, man, happy to always answer any questions about Charlotte, why it is the best city in North Carolina. I can't wait for your friend in Raleigh to hear that. And then, I appreciate you guys. So I hope this was insightful and helpful in some capacity.
Well, this is great.
100%.
And,
like we said, we don't know anything about Charlotte, so now we have a good primer.
Yeah, and a reason to come visit.
Exactly.
I'll send you guys the guide so you can kind of get the DL on all of the different neighborhoods around the area. And but now would love to play host.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right. I'm Aaron.
I'm Geoff.
And we are the Aaron and Geoff team at Compass, your Bronx residential real estate expert.
This has been the Relocation Rundown, and thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.